Civil War defined us as what we are, and it opened us to being what we became, good and bad things. And it is very necessary, if you're going to understand the American character in the 20th century, to learn about this enormous catastrophe of the mid-19th century. It was the crossroads of our being, and it was a hell of a crossroads.
Tennessee, famous for stories and storytellers. Bordered by the Great Smoky Mountains to the east and the mighty Mississippi River to the west, Tennessee's landscape is an ever-changing backdrop and a formidable actor in the drama that plays out across its miles. Some of Tennessee's best and most enduring stories about people, places, and events may now be rediscovered, researched, and retold through an evolving statewide project that focuses on the years surrounding the American Civil War. In this re-examination and retelling of the past, new understandings may emerge to enlighten the present and future of the volunteer state. The Tennessee Civil War Heritage Area invites the participation of all 95 counties in Tennessee. Its goal is to interpret, preserve, enhance, and promote the quality management and story of the state's resources in the period from 1850 through 1875. Defined by the events prior to the conflict through the war years and Reconstruction, this 25-year period laid the foundation of a complex legacy that shaped modern Tennessee. With the creation of this heritage area, individuals and organizations across the state have the opportunity to explore Tennessee's special role in the Civil War and its aftermath. This partnership invites and welcomes the stories of all Tennesseans and their descendants who were affected by these years of monumental change. Tennessee, often described as 3 states in one because of its distinctive geographic regions, was truly a divided state during the Civil War. Political loyalties, economics, and traditions separated Tennessee's counties and citizens from east to west. Individual communities and families confronted difficult choices as the talk of war escalated into a destructive time of military occupation and bitter turmoil. Tennessee was a significant state required by both the Union and the Confederacy for strategic military control. Stretching more than 400 miles east to west and 110 miles north to south, it was a gateway to the heart of the Confederacy. Populated with both Union and Confederate sympathizers, a network of rivers and rail routes, productive farmlands, and a surprising number of industrial sites, Tennessee was both a prime target and prize. As a result, Tennessee's people and landscape endured more military activity in the American Civil War than any other state except Virginia. The Civil War was a military conflict of undeniable and lasting significance in the ongoing saga of American democracy. Stories from both sides are legion. They tell of courageous and cunning men and women and their battles against the terrain, the elements, disease, and death. Though some areas of the state were at greater risk during the long conflict, no county in Tennessee escaped the effects of war. The tradition of preserving Civil War history in Tennessee is a strong one. In the immediate aftermath of the war, the scarred landscape provided a powerful source of identity and remembrance that has been passed on to succeeding generations. Battle and burial grounds were consecrated and monuments were erected. Veterans told and wrote about what they remembered. Later, the churches, barns, and fields where soldiers camped, the houses that were turned into hospitals, and the routes that were traveled by soldiers, horses, and cannons all joined this legacy.
If you want to find Jesus, go in the wilderness, go in the wilderness, go in the wilderness. If you want to find
Men and women freed from slavery added their voices to this rich narrative. The places where they gathered to worship, to learn, to establish their farms and businesses, and bury their dead are all part of this tapestry. Stories of caves and houses that sheltered those who escaped to freedom on the Underground Railroad during the years of slavery were told and retold. And in the years following the war, their struggle remained almost as difficult. For many former slaves, the end of the war was just the beginning of a long road to equality and justice. It was a road that their children and grandchildren would walk all the way into the 21st century. And along the way, stories of courage, conflict, sadness, talent, and success passed from generation to generation. These stories are a pivotal focus of the heritage area. In the 20th century, the National Park Service has contributed immeasurably to the preservation and education of the American Civil War. Shiloh, Fort Donelson, Stones River, and the Chickamauga, Chattanooga National Battlefields have told the story of the Civil War in Tennessee to thousands of visitors. The Andrew Johnson National Historic Site in Greenville interprets sites related to the historic figure that is inseparable from the Civil War and Reconstruction. State and local museums, historical societies, and hereditary chapters have contributed to the wide body of information and conservation of many Civil War resources. The reality and legacy of the years from 1850 through 1875 brought fundamental changes to Tennessee. Women, forced by the necessity of war to assume an ever greater responsibility for families, farms, and businesses, pushed the suffrage movement forward in the last half of the 19th century. The evolution from agriculture to industry in the South was set on a more rapid course by these years. Advancements in medicine, transportation, and technology are directly linked to the impact of the war and the rebuilding of a nation. Imagine a network that collects and interprets the stories of people, places, and events, as well as sources of information about the Civil War in Tennessee. Envision a partnership of state and local organizations, government agencies, businesses, and educators focused on managing and interpreting Tennessee's Civil War legacy. This partnership would assist in identifying and conserving our resources while benefiting the economic investment potential of our communities. Consider how such a partnership might be a positive contributor to the quality of life in your county, town, and neighborhood. The Tennessee Civil War Heritage Area focuses on protecting and promoting the resources that will attract visitors and create a sense of pride in all local citizens. Community pride in heritage tourism leads to the support of a wider and more stable economic base. The possibilities for positive economic impact are a part of this project. The Tennessee Civil War Heritage Area is also designed to encourage an appreciation and respect for state and local history. From the study and interpretation of a past fraught with difficult and massive change can come a present and future that is more appealing, tolerant, and livable. Congress has designated 18 national heritage areas, and Tennessee is the only one to include an entire state. Through congressional appropriations, the Civil War Heritage Area will receive grants for planning and carrying out this commitment over a 10-year period. All monies received require a 50-50 match with non-federal money. A major portion of this funding will be matched by the Center for Historic Preservation at Middle Tennessee State University. The center is a designated clearinghouse for this heritage area. Other portions can be matched by in-kind donations of time and other eligible contributions. Plans call for the Tennessee Civil War Heritage Area to become self-supporting by the year 2012. The Center for Historic Preservation at MTSU, the Tennessee Department of Tourism, the Tennessee Historical Commission, and the Governor's Office, along with many other potential partners, invite you to become involved in shaping this exciting heritage program. Public forums, a website, and this video are designed to introduce Tennesseans to the Civil War heritage area and to encourage participation in its development. Here are some ways that you and your group can take part in the Tennessee Civil War Heritage Area Network. Begin by contacting the Center for Historic Preservation about your interest and involvement in programs, projects, and organizations that focus upon the years from 1850 through 1875. Next, start planning projects related to this period in your community. For example, local museums could work with the center to begin planning exhibits on Civil War-related themes, such as the changing agricultural or industrial landscape, women, African American history, war veterans, or railroads. Work with your group to begin drafting project ideas, researching information and artifacts, and access the Civil War Heritage Area website for ideas on topics and resources. Identify and collect copies of letters, diaries, memoirs, or photographs of ancestors that fought for the Union or the Confederacy. With assistance from the Civil War Heritage Area, these primary documents could be transcribed and published into a booklet or a website to interpret these issues and people. Your community might plan to preserve and interpret industrial or archaeological sites, railroads, farms, monuments, and relatively unchanged landscapes remaining from the Civil War and Reconstruction eras. Consider what types of assistance would be necessary to protect these historic treasures. Develop quality brochures, walking or driving tours, and interpretive signs. Feature these resources in heritage events and festivals. Partner with other communities in the Heritage Area Network to develop and distribute publications and publicity. Some existing projects and programs will be adapted to highlight the years from 1850 through 1875. For example, Tennesseans who own family farms established during this period can join the Century Farms program. The African American Rural Church Project also helps to document the legacy of the Civil War in Tennessee. Members of African American churches that were established in the decade following the Civil War can become part of this project. Churches and any adjacent schools or cemeteries may be eligible for the National Register of Historic Places. Educators looking for materials to teach the Civil War and Reconstruction can use the Heritage Area's website to obtain teaching materials, bibliographies, and links to get started. Share methods, lesson plans, and activities through the website with other Tennessee teachers. Visit the National Park Service's website on the Civil War and contact personnel at Tennessee's Park Service sites for materials and tours for your classes. These are just a few examples of the types of projects that can benefit your community and Tennessee. By the end of next year, guidelines for applications to fund special projects will be developed and approved by the Advisory Board of the Tennessee Civil War Heritage Area. If your group or community is interested in becoming a partner in this program and applying for grant money, now is the time to begin developing your project and plans for matching the funds. The American Civil War was the watershed event of the 19th century. The years of war and its aftermath, in large measure, shaped 20th century America. In the 21st century, the legacy of this historic period can be a force for positive change, economic benefits, historical reflection, and lasting programs in every Tennessee county. The Civil War Heritage Area, a partnership to preserve and interpret the stories, effects, and legacy of the Civil War in Tennessee. Begin planning today to make the most of this opportunity for both you and your community.